Okay, good morning, everyone. Hopefully everyone can hear us. Graham, are we ready to start recording?
Yep, recording is just starting now.
Oh, good morning, everyone. I'm just wondering if Mr. Finlay has just appeared. That's good. Welcome to day 2 of inquiry session 2, which is with regard to wildland impacts of the proposed Glenshero wind farm. I have given a background to the case and preamble on day 1 of this inquiry, and anyone who is just looking at this particular session can refer back to Tuesday the 10th, the webcast from that day, to find the background to this case. However, for those who are tuning in, it will be useful that we introduce ourselves. So my name is Keith Bray. I'm the reporter appointed by Scottish ministers to report back to them on this case. And I'll just go round the participants for today. So I'll start with the applicant.
Thanks, sir. Good morning. Marcus Triniker, Queen's Counsel. And you remember that I called Mr. Welch yesterday, and he's on this call.
And for DHR Scott and the Council.
James Finlay, Queen's Counsel. I called Carol Anderson yesterday. She's not, in fact, on this call, but other members of our team are.
And for the John Muir Trust and Wildland Limited.
Good morning, sir. Ian Kelly, retired planning consultant acting for John Muir Trust and Wildland Limited. This morning I will call Dr. Steve Carver as our sole witness in this session.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. And we will note that Dr. Gordon from Mount Irene, Scotland is not taking part in this today, although he has taken part in the earlier session. This morning, we are to hear the evidence from Dr. Carver, and as we indicated yesterday, I think we're allowing around about 30 minutes or so to allow Dr. Carver to explain the methodology as part of the examination in chief. But before we go into that, I would like to just raise one procedural point, and that is with regard to the hearings next week. Now, I know that Dr. Gordon is not on the call, but there have been a small number of additional suggestions for the agenda. So if any party would wish to supplement the agenda or clarify which points that they would like added to the agenda, then I would quite welcome that by the close of play today. I have a note myself, but just if any of the parties wish to clarify the additional points that they wish to raise at the policy and energy and economic benefit hearing, then I would welcome additional points. So it's not a requirement, but if you wish to do it, you can. I've got a note, as I say. The other matter is I'm trying a slightly different microphone today, so I hope I'm a bit clearer. So I hope that will help, although it may be in relation to my internet connection. But do I sound a little bit better today? A bit clearer? Thumbs up. That's good. That's all the procedural matters that I wanted to raise. Are there any other procedural matters before we move on? Mr. Finlay.
Yes, so it relates to next Tuesday's hearing, and unfortunately, for unavoidable reasons, Simon Brooks is unavailable. He was going to be Nature Scott's witness. Don't wish to give any particular detail, but there's a very serious illness of a close family member, unavoidably detained for those reasons. There's no immediate obvious replacement, but what we are proposing to do to avoid any delay is to replace him with two others, Debbie Green, who's an operations manager with Nature Scott, and Catherine Harry, who is a landscape architect. Catherine may well be able to provide the further information on wildland that I know has been referred to in emails and by Mr. Trinick yesterday from a more policy angle rather than giving landscape architectural evidence. And Debbie may be able to fill in with other matters. So along with the team that I'm effectively fielding of Nina Cordery from the Park and Simon Heinsohn from Highland Council, we expect to be able to cover all the issues, but I had notified my own friend Mr. Trinick in advance. It may be that we don't provide such a seamless performance as if Mr. Brooks was there, but we'll hope parties will take account of that. But we feel satisfied we should be able to provide you with the information you need and avoid any delay to the, that session.
Thank you for that, Mr. Finlay. Any of the parties got a comment on that first of all? Are we all content with that, Mr. Trinick?
Sorry, see, I'm of course content with that. I had a separate point.
Okay.
I understand, I'm just waiting for confirmation, that Brad Johnson Mackenzie and Nicola Martin has written to suggest an alteration in the order of the hearing sessions next week. Has that come to your attention yet?
It's not come to my attention yet, so I'm happy to hear it just now, Mr. Trinick.
Let me just, yes, I've got it now. It's Nicola Martin's email sent yesterday evening, so no, you wouldn't have seen it yet. No, I tell you what, Nicola Martin's on the call. I'm going to make her speak for herself on this one because I'm a bit unsighted in terms of what exactly is being requested. So Nicola Martin, with your permission, sir, could she unmute and speak to you direct about this?
As long as all the parties are happy with that, I'm happy to hear, and all the parties seem to be, so. There we are.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, everybody. Yes, the email that I sent yesterday was to invite you to take the economic benefit session, that's item 7, first on Tuesday, on the basis that there are a couple of reasons for that. First of all, it is a topic that will then feed in, we believe, into the policy sessions, which could draw on the discussion that would be had under that item. Secondly, the team for the applicant will be together in a large meeting room in Fort William for that session because there is a wider team, and it's proposed to use a camera tracking system and have one access to the meeting. And we're hoping that that will work and would be the best way to do it. And following that session, we would propose to for members of the team that would not be required for the following sessions to leave the meeting. And it will also allow us, if there are issues with that, to revert to individuals joining the session from their own laptops, if that's necessary. Hopefully that would be a helpful way forward on that hearing session. I've also suggested in my email that an item relating to the Jenks mapping for the role and relevance of the policy of the Jenks mapping be added to the wildland item, which is item 5 on your agenda.
Thank you for that, Ms. Martin. You might have heard I've invited all the parties if they wish to contribute additional items, so you've obviously already done that. Can I ask the other parties' views, albeit Dr. Gordon's not here at the moment, but Mr. Finlay?
So initially I have no objection to either point. I'm still seeking instructions because we're not actually all gathered in one location. So we'll have to take instructions, but I don't see that either of those matters as an issue. But if I get any feedback during the course of the morning, I will inform you at a suitable moment. Whilst I'm on the call, I was going to say that I will ensure that you have a short CV from the two new participants in the session on Tuesday, so that you understand who they are and what their background is, and others do as well.
Thank you. Mr. Kelly, do you have any comments?
No objections as such, sir. I think in the unfortunate absence of Simon Brooks, it might be more challenging to deal with the policy aspects of the Jenks classification and how that feeds into wild land. It's quite a complicated history. He has that history, and I'm not sure where the other witnesses will have. But otherwise, no objections to the suggested change of order. Hopefully, sir, you'll have a chance to issue an updated agenda for the hearing on Monday at some point. What I would find helpful is the approach you took in your first draft agenda, sir, of indicating who you specifically hoped would contribute to each particular agenda item on the hearing agenda. I would find that helpful, but basically no objections to what's suggested, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Once I've considered the additional points, then my plan would be to, I know it's a little late in the day, but I would issue a revised agenda. All the parties, at least that are on the call today, seem to be supportive of that. I won't be changing my previous agenda items in any substantial way. I might clarify who I might be looking for in particular, so there shouldn't be any shocks there. But if you're all happy that you receive a revised agenda, hopefully in the morning on Monday, maybe that's too much of a commitment for me, but I'll try by lunchtime to get that out, if all the parties are happy. One additional matter that is probably useful to raise is that given that we're starting at 10 and finishing at 4 or earlier, we're looking for 4 hours sitting, there may be the potential that that first hearing session overruns. So I'm just putting that out there just now, that I'm sure you will have considered that previously, and that would knock on the conditions hearing. But I'm pretty confident that we can get both wrapped up within 2 days. But it might be useful, since we're talking about it just now, have any of the parties a problem if the policy hearing, the hearing runs on to Wednesday? Does that present a problem if we're considering economic benefit matters first?
And not for, as I understand it, not for Highland Council or Nature Scott. And I understand the conditions session hopefully should be fairly short, so there should be plenty of time on Wednesday to deal with it. So as far as I'm aware, that doesn't cause us any problems, and we had anticipated there might be an overrun.
Sorry, sir. I'll let Nicola Martin speak for the applicant in terms of if the policy session overruns till Wednesday.
Sir, I understand that Mr. Bell will be available on Wednesday morning. I will ask, could I ask that I come back to you as soon as I can this morning, if that's not the case?
Yeah, that's fine, but it does sound as if that adds further to your suggestion that we deal with economic benefits first, by the sounds of things. So I'm quite happy to consider that email and what we've discussed. If there and just before we close, we'll just clarify matters for the hearings next week, before we close today, that is, and a commitment to reissue the agendas on Monday.
Thank you,
Any
sir.
final points?
Yes, we've just had a WhatsApp from David Bell saying yes, he is okay for Wednesday, so that helps us there. The one other point I have is, I forgot to mention it, is that because we've been discussing Jenks classification, Mr. Welch will be sitting in on the relevant session next week.
Okay, Mr. Kelly, do you have any final comments on these matters?
I've just checked my diary. Continuing to Wednesday morning next week shouldn't be a problem for me for that session.
Thank you for that. and I hope it doesn't cause Mr. Dr. Gordon any problems, but he's indicated he's listening today. So if he does have a difficulty, then he can let our office know. Okay, I think that's probably all the procedural matters addressed. Oh, Mr. Finlay.
So just perhaps on that, just thinking of Dr. Gordon, that he's obviously got a particular interest in tourism, one part of the agenda. I certainly, from my point, have no objection to taking that out of by itself if necessary, so to give him a fixed time if he does have difficulties on Wednesday. But I just put that down as a suggestion in case he's listening.
Thank you, Mr. Finlay. Mr. Kelly, can I hand over to you to introduce your witness?
Thank you, sir. The witness this morning is Dr. Steve Carver from the Wildland Research Institute in Leeds University. As I indicated to you yesterday, rather than ask him a series of questions, I'm going to hand over to him and ask Dr. Carver to first of all introduce himself, then speak to his methodology, so hopefully you fully understand it, sir. And then, as I understand it, there are one or two very small matters raised by Mr. Welsh yesterday that Dr. Carver wishes to respond to before cross-examination. So I'm just going to hand over to Dr. Carver and let him speak uninterrupted.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you, sir. Yes, just quickly then, I'll take no more than half an hour over this, but I'm acting here as director of the Wildland Research Institute. I'm also co-chair of the IUCN Commission on Environmental Management Rewilding Thematic Group. I have over 25 years experience in wildland mapping and in work supporting decision and policy making on these matters across Europe, including, as you know, Scotland, but also in Iceland and France. And I'm currently working in France and China to develop their government's wildland mapping approaches. In France, that's referred to as Haute Naturalité, and in China, Huangye. I also work in the USA, and I'm obviously, you know, the originator of the original Scottish Natural Heritage NatureScot Phase 1 wildland mapping methodology. This I developed in close liaison with the Cairngorm National Park Authority and the Loch Lomond and Trossachs National Park Authority. I'm author of over 100 scientific papers on or around this topic. And as I say, I'm currently working with partners in France and China on this. This is my second PLI, but I do have experience in rerunning the Scottish Natural Heritage NatureScot Phase 1 and 2 mapping methodology for several developments, including Altdooney, the Cononish Gold Mine, the Tala Vey wind farm in Loch Rannoch, Rannoch Moor area. And as you know, last one appearance in the PLI was the Limekiln 2 and Drumholliston inquiry. I've also recently finished a similar piece of work evaluating the Hvala power plant in Iceland. This is a hydroelectric power plant in a wilderness area. And recently also I did some work on the Beauly Denny, which was useful for analysing and evaluating the Oxnadala power line upgrade in Iceland, plus various other developments affecting wildland. If you don't mind, having done that by way of introduction, I'd like to spend a little bit of time just outlining the Phase 1 mapping methodology that I developed originally with AONBs in England, but then later in the 2 national parks in Scotland, which then obviously rolled forward in the national wildland mapping exercise undertaken by Scottish Natural Heritage in the run-up to 2014. As you know, this methodology is based on mapping 4 wildness attributes and combining these to produce a wildland quality index, SNH referred to as the Phase 1 composite map. And I'd just like to state here very clearly that this was designed to be a rigorous, robust, and above all, repeatable methodology that is data-driven, it's objective, and it's designed to support the kind of deliberations that we're undergoing now with the current PLI. It's not intended as a replacement for the professional judgment of landscape architects and planners. It's intended as a objective and data-driven device to support their deliberations and provide us with some definitive quantitative data on and around the impact of developments such as Glenshero on wild land. So I'll just spend a little bit of time just outlining what those 4 attributes are and their relevance to the current inquiry. So the first of which is perceived naturalness of land cover. Now this is based on a classification of naturalness of land cover data sets. So these are satellite derived and ground-based mapping data sets. And it does that within a 250-meter radius. So in other words, it's trying to capture how a casual observer walking through a landscape would observe the apparent naturalness or the perceived naturalness of the land cover as they do so. And that's mapped in our report in figures 3.1 to 3.4. The second one is absence of modern human artifacts. Now this is based on the visual impact of all large-scale human features in the landscape, and that includes buildings, structures, tracks, roads, railways, power lines, and of course wind turbines. And we'll return to this methodology later because it deserves particular attention for the reporter and others to understand. This is mapped in figures 3.5 to 3.8 in our report. The third attribute is remoteness from mechanized access, and there was some discussion on this yesterday, but it's based on not on road type, but it's based on walking time from the nearest road usable by the public with a motor vehicle. So this is publicly accessible roads. And it uses Naismith's rule. It's a famous Walker's rule used to calculate or estimate the time taken for a particular journey, together with Langmuir's correction. And it uses a terrain model. It uses barrier features to impede movement, such as locks and large rivers that you wouldn't cross on foot, and near vertical ground like cliffs. It also includes land cover as a trafficability element. And there was some discussion yesterday about bogs and how those are not included in the ruggedness and attribute, but they are included in the remoteness model because we add a time penalty for traversing boggy ground, such as we find a lot in the model there. Those are mapped in figures 3.9 to 3.12 in our report. The fourth attribute is ruggedness, and this is based on the standard deviation of curvature, total curvature, which is rate of change of slope, or how rugged the landscape is, again within a 250-meter radius, and so it tends to be quite localized. That is not impacted by the current development, and although it is incorporated into the composite map, it's not mapped for each of the sequence of development in the area. I'd just like to outline the significance of each of those attributes and how they are impacted by large-scale wind energy developments like we're discussing here. And this is principally focuses on the absence of modern human artifacts attribute, but the others are still nonetheless relevant. So perceived naturalness, if I take them in order again, perceived naturalness is impacted locally, i.e. within that 250-meter radius circle, by things like turbine footings, hard standings, the tracks themselves, borrow pits, etc., where these objects are larger than the minimum mapping unit of 25 square meters. So you'll see in figures 3.1 to 3.4, there are certain elements of that which are impacted by the development. the absence of modern human artifacts layer is impacted at a landscape scale. This is different, of course. So we include wind turbines up to 30 kilometers in that methodology and 15 kilometers for all of the features. And this is the principal attribute impacted by large-scale wind energy development. Remoteness is impacted at a local to a landscape scale, depending on the setting. And this is impacted by reduced walking times, or if you're using a mountain bike along turbine access tracks, again, from the nearest public road where you might leave your car and start walking or cycling. And of course, that depends on local configuration of access tracks, the terrain, the land cover, and the intervening barrier features. Also, they may have obviously a marked impact from wind energy developments because of the access track networks involved. Finally, say ruggedness, it's not considered here, although it is used in the creation of the composite because it's not been noticeably impacted. Now, if you don't mind, I'll just explain, take a couple of minutes just to explain in more detail what the absence of modern human artifacts attribute is and how it's calculated, and how then it's different from the standard ZTVs that we've been looking at hitherto, and how it takes all human features into account, not just the turbines. So absence of modern human artifacts is calculated not using off-the-shelf GIS software, although I'm very familiar with that and use it in some of my teaching and some of my research, but we use a bespoke piece of software. This is called the Viewshed Explorer. It's a very rapid, accurate, and detailed voxel-based tool. So instead of using grid cells, 2D grid cells, it uses columnar structures similar to Giant's Causeway is always a good analogy, physical analogy for this model. It's a tool that we developed. As I say, it's very rapid and very accurate and detailed, and it's used to calculate cumulative visual impact from human features in the landscape. And as a result, it's very different from the ZTVs that we've been looking at. And the reason it's different is it incorporates within its calculations, it incorporates the distance decay effects. And the best way to illustrate that is one of my desk toys is a piston from one of my old motorbikes. And well, you probably can't see it, but it's very small in the view shed there. But if I bring it right up to the camera, oh, it's very difficult in this. It occupies more and more of your visual influence. And this is what the wireframes and the photo montages try to illustrate. Of course, this is calculated across the landscape using the voxel viewshed tool. So it incorporates that distance decay effect on, obviously, as you move away from an object, the smaller and smaller it appears. When it's very close to you, it appears to dominate the landscape. It also calculates vertical area visible. So it's actually working out the vertical area of the features in the landscape, in this instance turbines, but all those other human features. And it calculates partial visibility. So with the ZTVs, we're looking at whether a turbine is visible from the top of the blade tip, and that's all. And so that what we call binary view sheds. It's a can you see it, can you not type model. Whereas the voxel viewshed tool, again, I'll just try to illustrate. So if my piston is a turbine on the top of a hill, I can see it all, but as it disappears behind the hill, what the voxel viewshed tool is doing is it's calculating the partial area that's visible, not just the top. So as it drops down and you can just see the top, that's what the ZTVs are doing. They're not calculating this partial visibility effect. And that's very important for visual impact assessment. They also calculate this on a 360-degree panorama, and they also do it in cumulative effect of all human features in the landscape, not just the wind turbines. So you cannot isolate wind turbines from the rest of the human features in the landscape when calculating visual impact. And so the ZTVs that we've been looking at are just binary can you see it, can you not calculations. They don't take distance decay into account, except for the buffer zones that are drawn on those maps. They don't take vertical area into account. They do not take partial visibility effects into account, and they don't account for all of the other human features in the landscape, such as yesterday we were discussing the Belgavi substation, very large structure that clearly has an impact in cumulative effects. So ZTVs, as they stand, I think are very blunt tools, which is why we developed this bespoke piece of software, and it's why SNH Nature Scotland used it to calculate the absence of modern human artifacts layer. And it's also widely used across the world by US National Park Service, the US Forest Service, the Icelandic government, and several commercial companies. So I hope you understand now why we put such great store on the use of this tool to calculate absence of modern human artifacts layer. We've just had a brief discussion earlier as well about Jenks classes, and these are important because the phase 2 mapping took the composite of these 4 attributes to create the wildness layer, and then we used, SNH used the Jenks natural Blake's classification with 8 classes to create some basis for drawing the final wildland areas. And they did that with 8 classes, and they took large contiguous areas of class 7 and 8. So those are the top classes, areas greater than 650 hectares, and adjacent classes 5 and 6 to define the wildland areas. These were then drawn around, as somebody said yesterday, with a Sharpie on a map, introducing an element of professional judgment from landscape architects and planners to define those with easily recognizable features on the ground. And of course, what the Jenks method is doing, it's just a statistical technique. It's designed to determine the best arrangement of different classes across a distribution. In this case, the distribution is all the wildland values from phase 1 across the whole of Scotland. And it does this by seeking to minimize each class's average deviation from the class mean, while maximizing each class's deviation from the means of other groups. And I think that I used the example of ages of people in the Drumholliston Limekiln inquiry, which seemed to work quite well. So if you take a university like Leeds, there's a very skewed distribution of ages. We have 45,000 people in the university, of which 30,000 are students, and their age ranges are 18 to 21 mainly. So a Jenks class would break the university age ranges down into 2, and it would minimize these mean differences for the student group versus the staff group. You could then further subdivide, let's say, the staff group, because we got different age groups in the staff. And I've been there 27 years now, so I probably fall into one of the older ones. But you see what the Jenks class system is doing statistically. And in a way, it's kind of, well, it is just statistical technique. It doesn't take into account local variations in wildness and the importance of those in the vicinity. And this is why SNH did some little juggling around of the Jenks classes for wildland areas south of the Highland boundary fault, such that there was some representative areas near to the central belt. So places like Taller and Gamehope and Merrick came out in that process. SNH also experimented with different classifications. So they tried 5 groups, 5 Jenks classes, they tried 10, I believe, and then they settled on 8 as apparently a good representation. So what we've done here in terms of, if I bring it back to the inquiry here, what we've done here is to take the SNH Nature Scot phase 1 methodology and repeat it here exactly as specified in the SNH Geographic Information Guidance document of 2014. So we use the same methods, we use the same data, and we're repeating that methodology exactly. And it's done as a sequence. So we took the SNH phase 1 mapping as produced and released in 2014. And we inserted Strone-Legge and repeated the methodology with Strone-Legge in place. We added the confounded Dell wind farm and repeated it with that in place. And then we also did Glenshero, and in part of that process, I also included Cloich as well. So we're placing in a sequence each of the wind farm developments in the immediate area, including other wind farms around the place as well, because we know there are several wind farms within the visible landscape, to model the impact of Glenshero on wildness and compare it to pre-Strone-Legge conditions. So I'm just kind of getting to the end of this kind of introduction here, but what we've done there is to, as I say, is to basically repeat using the exact same method in a rigorous, robust, and critically repeatable manner. Now, the phase 1 and 2 methodology needs repeating here to supplement and support the professional judgment of certified landscape architects like Mr. Welsh and Miss Anderson. And it's always been the intention of that when we developed the original phase 1, phase 2 mapping, that it would be repeated at regular intervals, and as and when large scale developments such as Glenshero are proposed, such that you're able to quantitatively and objectively evaluate their impact on wildland areas and the associated attrition of wildland in Scotland as a whole. Nature Scotland, SNH have not and did not repeat the phase 1 and 2 methodology for Strone-Legge, as far as I'm aware, rather than they just, and I stand to be corrected on this if this is not true, but this is the best of my knowledge, they did not repeat that methodology when Strone-Legge was consented. Rather, they just redrew the 2013 phase 3 core areas of wildland boundaries, as seen then in the resulting June 2014 wildland areas map. So the boundaries that we see now, which effectively split the monolayer in two to create wildland areas 19 and 20, have not gone through this phase 1 and phase 2 mapping process. They were really just done as a desk-based study by landscape architects planners. Finally, in addition to the landscape wildland impact assessment that I've repeated for Glenshero as just described, I've also expanded the analysis to look at the wider issue of landscape capacity as mapped at the national level in our figures 3.21 to 3.24. Now, in figure 3.22 and 3.23, and this is where I think the confusion arose yesterday, which Mr. Kelly referred to, is that those are not view sheds of existing turbines in those figures. These are an analysis, a reverse view shed analysis, if you like, to predict the visibility and the impact of wind turbines that, if built, that haven't yet been built, if built, could be viewed from inside wildland areas. So those color gradations in figure 3.22 and the classification in 3.23 attempt to show the percentage levels of impact of 130 meter high turbines if they were to be built in the area. And of course, the inset map figure 3.23, 23A, shows local detail around the Glenshero proposal and where it sits in regard to visibility from the wildland areas. It's actually figure 3.24 that I think Mr. Trinick and Mr. Welsh should have been referring to in their discussion about the journey, the hypothetical journey from Perth through to Inverness along the A9 corridor, and the wind turbines that would have been visible. So that map there is actually a mapping of the view sheds of all the existing wind turbines in and around Scotland and over into the English border because of obviously the obvious overlap. So I'd like to just end it there and thank you for your attention. But I think those are some important points that we need to clarify before any cross-examination. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Dr. Carver. From my notes, there was one further point which you may have addressed in your general resume there, and that is when Mr. Welsh answered just a question about paragraph 112 of your report in terms of the accuracy of ZTVs. You wondered if he had fully understood the difference between ZTVs and the output from Viewshed Explorer software. Is there anything further you want to say about that, or do you feel you've covered it in your general presentation?
I think I've covered it in my general presentation. My point was that I think this Mr. Welsh made the comment that the absence of modern human artifacts layer didn't map the ZTVs of the wind turbines, where in fact it does, but it just does it in combination with all other human features in the landscape. So it's a combined cumulative impact effect. So, and I think that's very important, because you can't just look at the wind turbines in isolation. You have to include all of the other obvious human features in the landscape to think about issues to do with landscape capacity. And again, I know this was an issue that was discussed yesterday, and the mapping that I've provided in 3.22 onwards attempts to look at that issue about landscape capacity. And again, I know there has been some discussion about the area becoming an energy landscape dominated by wind turbines, and these maps provide some quantitative evidence of that.
Sir, that ends the evidence in chief. Looking at the time, I wonder, I would certainly be grateful for a 10 or 15-minute break before Mr. Trinick starts his cross-examination, if you would be okay with that, sir.
I was certainly going to offer that, Mr. Kelly. I think a 10-minute break. Mr. Trinick, you don't have a problem with that?
Nope.
So if we arrive back at 10:25, how does that sound? 10:25?
Perfect.
Hey, just one final point, Mr. Carver. I have had my IT colleagues saying that the background that you're setting,
All right. I'm going to switch it off.
is not really good for the recording, and particularly if you're moving around. I think it's going to reduce the quality of the recording for those viewing. So either background off or stay as still as you can is the guidance that we've had. Okay.
Oh, staying still is difficult. Yeah, my office is a bit of a mess, but yeah, I'll switch it off.
Thank you for that, and we'll see you all back at 10:25. Okay, I think we're all back on video and ready to continue after the conclusion of, oh, Mr. Kelly.
Just to say that to avoid me asking or minimize the chances of me asking for any breaks for myself during Mr. Trinick's cross-examination, from time to time I'll just move away from sitting at my computer, but I'm in the same room with the video on and the sound on, so I'll still hear it even if I'm not on camera. So I will not be leaving the call at any stage, even if I'm not on screen. So it just makes it easier for Mr. Trinick.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. And if you do have to intervene in any way, then at least you're there. So thank you for that. Mr. Trinick, can I hand over to you for cross-examination?
Thanks, sir. Good morning, Dr. Carver.
Good morning, Mr. Trinick. How are you?
Very well, thank you. I'd like to start by going to the lime kiln report of the inquiry, which is CD 910. If you'd like to get that up.
Yes, got that.
And when you get there, can you go to electronic page 69? Are you there, sir?
Yes, I am. Yes, my machine was a little slow to reply with all of the documents open, but yes, there we go.
Okay. At paragraph 474, these are the submissions made on behalf of JMT, describes your evidence. I'm not going to go through these paragraphs, I'm just noting them for the reporter. This is where the submissions are made on behalf of JMT. And they conclude at 484, that we clarify during the inquiry the remapping exercise as a complementary approach and not being presented as an alternative to other means of assessment, including the use of ZTVs, wirelines, and field work. And 485 is a summary paragraph I needn't read out. We go on to 494, which I'm pointing to be fair to your case, where this is where the reporters are summarizing the wildland evidence. Methodological issues aside, we consider the evidence presented by parties regardless of whether it aligns with the 2007 draft 2017 guidance or whether it's a bespoke approach such as that by Dr. Carver can all be given due regard in terms of the substance of the evidence therein. And they use that range of evidence. So to be fair, I'll point out that paragraph. But then we go to 430, which is on electronic page 79. Just cast your eye over 4130, would you, and others, please just read it again, and then I'll ask a question. Okay, the only sentence I want to go to is a desk-based approach also has inherent limitations. As Dr. Carver fairly acknowledged, it's not intended to be a substitute for field assessment. Your approach on this inquiry is, and I'm not giving evidence, but I can say it from first hand, as far as I can see, really the approach you used at the lime kiln inquiry. There are no material differences, am I correct?
You would be correct, yes.
Yeah, and it's a bespoke approach in the sense it's been crafted by you and by the Wildland Institute in terms of repeat mapping and the end result, which is what we see on the figures you've produced.
We were the originators of the methodology, as I explained in my talk earlier this morning, that was developed with the two national parks and SNH. SNH then took that methodology, made some minor adjustments to it and applied it across the whole of Scotland. Right.
And so far as this inquiry is concerned, am I right, you've done no field work yourself? This is simply a GIS approach?
No, I have been to the field.
Well, you don't give evidence based on your field work. Your evidence is based on the GIS work, isn't it?
It is, but and I always make this point, and I've done this in other locations where I've been asked to do this kind of analysis, is that I refuse to do it unless I have visited the field work, the field location, because with any GIS analysis, and there's a very nice paper on this I can direct you to, If you do not go to the field and do your own ground truthing, then you easily make inappropriate assumptions on the case in question. So I have been to the field. I was there in late September. I know the area from previous visits, both pre and post drone leg development. So I did spend 2 days in the field, walking through principally around the Glenshero drone leg area, and while camping, walking around, getting a feel for the landscape.
Do we see any evidence of that field work within your figures, or are they simply a GIS product?
No, you do see evidence of it in that I have actually used that local knowledge to sense check the assumptions that the data makes in applying those data sets to the methodology.
I see. So what we see here has been ground truths by you.
To some extent, yes. In that, as I say, you need to know the lie of the land when applying this methodology. Otherwise, you're at risk of making inappropriate assumptions. So I'm very careful when doing this kind of work. For example, in Iceland, I spent 5 days in the area, getting a feel for the place. So I'm very much an advocate for the need for field work.
So when the reporter looks at your figures, he can say that these are to some extent, and we'll come back to this point, believe me, later, this information has been ground truthed by you. It's not simply a GIS product.
It's not simply a GIS product.
Okay, well. This takes me a little bit further on the line of what 430 says in the Limekiln report, not intended to be a substitute for field assessment. What does that acknowledgement by you actually mean?
Well, I think, as I said earlier, I mean, there's the need for both field assessments and for objective data-driven approaches. They both support each other. I might liken it to, as an analogy, a medic giving a diagnosis. If you don't use all of the tools available to you in terms of computer-aided tomography or other technical tools in your medical toolkit, then you're somehow missing the point. So, the technical work that I've done in terms of GIS mapping, informed by what little field work I was able to do, is intended to support the deliberations of the inquiry.
And you see, I mean, your approach is quite different, of course, from that of Mr. Welch and Carol Anderson, who have not attempted any remapping to bring matters up to date. They've gone into the field and they've updated their understanding of the wildness qualities of the area by virtue of field work and taking into account the details of what's happened in the meantime, i.e. since 2014. And they presented their views and their evidence of the wildness qualities of the area. What is the deficiency in their approach?
Well, I don't say it's deficient. I say it is one approach, but I would like to say that I think it's needs to be supported by a remapping. That was the initial intention of the methodology, to provide a robust, repeatable, and rigorous objective quantification of the impacts on wildland. Field work such as what I did and the field work of Mr. Welsh and Miss Anderson is important as well. But what we did see in your cross-examination and that of others is that there are their approach is somewhat more subjective, and there are differences of opinion.
Yeah, well, we'll come to whether subjectivity matters later. Would you go to your inquiry report, please, at paragraph 1.3?
So that would be C 16.1, yes?
Sorry, electronic page 3, yes. Sorry, yeah, you're 51, your inquiry report.
number 3, yeah. Page
in paragraph 1.3,
right, sorry.
where you rehearse. Sorry.
Sorry, no, you were saying electronic page number 3, and it's actually electronic page number 5.
You are absolutely right. I'm wrong. Thank you. And also go to paragraph 1.4 as well. And there you're rehearsing, it's not a policy session, but you're rehearsing 2 paragraphs in SPP.
Correct.
Would you agree with me that neither of them is engaged at this inquiry because we're not within wildland?
They are still relevant because large-scale developments impact inside wildland, and so you cannot divorce the two.
So we're to hear from Mr. Kelly in the policy session, are we, that SPP 215 is engaged? Is that your view?
You're talking about paragraph 1.4 here, yes? Well, if you're talking about in areas of wildland, then, well, in terms of Strone Leg, it certainly was. And if you look at,
we're talking about Glenshero, Dr.
yes,
Carver.
I know that. I'm just about to say, if you peruse the SNH's guidance on geographic information analysis applied to the phase 1 and phase 2 mapping, you'll see that Glenshero is or was actually inside a wildland area. So I believe it is relevant in the context of the landscape setting, yes.
Well, we look forward to Mr. Kelly's arguments in the policy session on that point. Go to your inquiry report, please, at page 4. Where in the second paragraph, you start additional analyses, and looking at the third line, area of Scotland currently remaining without visual impact from industrial wind turbines. If you'd also go, please, to electronic page 17. Paragraph 3.1. You say it should be obvious in the third line, even without further analysis, that the development of the scale-up proposed would have a significant adverse impact on existing wildland qualities of this area. Now, the words and phrases you use in these 2 paragraphs do seem to me to portray a predisposition against further wind turbines, or certainly commercial wind farms in upland Scotland. That must be the case, mustn't it?
I don't disagree there.
Are you a member of the John Muir Trust?
I am indeed, sir.
Yeah. And you sign on to the objectives of the John Muir Trust by being a member, don't you?
I do.
Yeah, okay. Looking at page 4 again of your inquiry report, you refer to the 2020 updated assessment guidance. And I also want you to go to page 8 of your inquiry report.
Yes.
Where you say in the 6th last line of 110, this is about remapping. The key principles in original phase 1 and 2 mapping by SNH needs to be repeated if robust and reliable assessments of the impacts on WLA and wildland qualities, etc. And also in next paragraph 111, you say in the 8th, 6th, the 7th last line, as per Wildland Institute, is it? I don't know.
That's correct, yes.
Response to the 2017 consultation, there is a strong argument and justification with the repeat mapping of phase 1 and 2 wildland attributes and areas. Now, I'd like to take you to CD 538 now, against that background.
.538, yes, got it.
I promptly lost myself, so you had to
I've got my copy.
Yeah, I haven't. Don't worry, I'll get out the electronic copy, so just bear with me a minute. Sorry to be so inefficient. I should have made sure I had it in front of me. If you go to paragraph 13 on electronic page 5.
Got it.
You're very quick, much quicker than I am. That's lovely.
Well, I got them all loaded on my PDF. So
Okay. It's quite clear, isn't it, that from paragraph 13, final bullet point, that SNH, or NHS Scott as they are now, require the assessment approach to be focused on qualities informed by field work and the WA descriptions. You see that?
I do indeed.
And in section 2 of your inquiry report, the whole of it is devoted to a history of the mapping process, isn't it?
Yes, I believe it's important to for the reporter and others to understand that process.
You see, what I think we're really seeing in your inquiry report, it may be partly about Glenshero, but it's partly a battle with Nature Scotland, isn't it? You feel that remapping is required and they're ignoring you, and hence the lengthy passages in your inquiry report. You want Nature Scott to listen to you, to commission you to remap the whole area, and they're not listening, and that's your problem.
I don't think so. I think if you look carefully at paragraph 13 in the 2020 document, CD 5.38, could you tell me anywhere in there where it says you shouldn't remap?
Not my question, Dr. Carver.
It's mine.
Your battle's really, and it's fairly clear on the face of your inquiry report. You've been saying to SNH and consultation responses in 2017, you've really got to remap, and they're ignoring you. And that's your battle, rather than simply a battle about Glenshero.
Well, I think I do believe that the methodology is clear and ought to be remapped, and we are remapping it, so that's okay.
The trouble is, Dr. Carver, you said the same things at the Limekiln inquiry, and isn't it really time to move on and accept that as happened at Limekiln, neither reporters nor decision makers nor Nature Scott are really interested in your academic exercises. They want to assess projects by reference to the advice we now have finalised from Nature Scott in September 2020, with which Mr. Welch is perfectly happy, with which Carol Anderson is perfectly happy. They can make it work. You're behind the times.
I don't think so. I think if you look and read the assessment process there, that nowhere does it say you shouldn't. It does acknowledge the requirement for field work, and I do that myself. As I said, I will not do this kind of work without having been to the field location myself. So, you know, I think the assessment process there, yes, there is a definite role for the kinds of assessments that Mr. Welsh and Miss Anderson have been doing and always will be, but I do believe that there is a requirement for this kind of objective, robust, rigorous and repeatable analysis. And indeed, I think if we look forward, it's probably not the case of this inquiry here, but to SP, National Planning Framework 4, there is an opportunity to revisit this at that juncture.
All right. If you go to paragraph 1.8 of your inquiry report on page 7, you say in the third line, while the technical guidance does not make explicit reference to GIS-based mapping approaches, the phase 1, original phase 1 and phase 2 of the wildland area mapping, etc., etc. Indeed, the technical guidance of 2020, September, CD 538, makes no reference to a GIS-based approach at all, does it?
It refers to mapping.
Not onto your GIS-based approach, does it?
GIS-based approach is mapping.
Well, I suggest the reason for this is that what GIS cannot do is to assess someone's perceptual response to wildland attributes. GIS is simply a mapping tool that could help with some baseline information in terms of attributes, but it can't replace the human response to those attributes, can it?
Absolutely not. There's a very well-worn phrase in the literature which says one man's wilderness is another's roadside picnic ground. And you know, that speaks very much to, yes, it's a good one. That speaks very much to this issue, is that we all have different responses to external visual stimuli, not just visual, but oral and oral as well. But having said that, the baseline mapping that the phase 1, phase 2 provides us with is a suitable foundation for evaluation and assessment of large-scale developments such as this. And I repeat to you that nowhere in the CD 538, the 2020 guidelines, does it say that mapping should not be repeated. And I've outlined in my own report, CD 16.1 and 1.8, digital page 7, how the guidance could be interpreted in a mapping framework. And that supplements and supports the kind of field work that you are referring to.
Yeah, but the difficulty is that your GIS mapping, I think you've agreed, it can update, it can map the attributes, the perceived naturalness of land cover, the remoteness, mechanized access, layers. It can do all that.
Correct.
But wait till I finish my question. But what it can't do, and I think we're agreed, is to map human responses to those attributes. I think there's, in short, please, we've agreed that, haven't we?
I would contend your use of the word map in that respect. If we are talking about the kind of mapping that provides us with a detailed spatial pattern across the whole study area, then GIS has its place, but the kinds of analysis assessments done by Mr. Welsh and Ms. Anderson and others also has limitations in that respect.
Not quite the answer to my question. My point is, I want to get this clear before we move on, that your mapping may or may not have any practical use at a project level in terms of updating information on baseline attributes of wildland, but it simply cannot help us when it comes to the perceptual responses to those attributes, can it?
It can map and model the spatial variations in the attributes which are drivers for those responses. How individual people then respond to those is a matter of individual preference, as admirably demonstrated by the variations in the professional judgments of landscape architects and planners involved in this inquiry.
Absolutely. And if we go to CD 538 at electronic page 8.
Going back to that again. 538, page 8. Yes, got it.
We got here the physical attributes listed, and we got perceptual responses listed and explanations in the right column.
Sure.
Your mapping may or may not help us with the physical attributes, but in terms of the perceptual responses of sense of sanctuary or solitude, risk, sense of awe, arresting or inspiring qualities, fulfillment from the personal challenge, that's a matter which is wholly within the province of the field work and professional judgment of James Welch and Carol Anderson, isn't it? You can't help us there.
Well, I mean, if you go back to the original origins of the methodology and SNH's 2002 document on wildness in Scotland's countryside, all of these attributes are in there. And the whole point of the phase 1 and phase 2 mapping exercise was to try to spatially delineate some of the drivers for these kinds of responses. How an individual then responds to those is down to the individual. And it's very useful, I don't deny, it's very useful to have the reports of Mr. Welsh and Miss Anderson presented to us to provide that extra nuance. But what they cannot do is they cannot provide us with a detailed spatial mapping of the variations in the drivers to individual responses.
Well, the difficulty is that I don't hear you say that your evidence as presented to this inquiry can in any way take us beyond attributes into responses. And I don't think you're saying that.
No, not in so many words. I'm saying it provides us with an important foundation on
Yeah,
which.
I'm going to stop you because I just like I just like an answer to my question.
Okay.
You're not saying that your evidence in any way informs the reporter about perceptual responses. It may or may not, that's up to him, help him with the mapping of attributes, but that's as far as it goes for this inquiry. Is that correct?
I disagree.
Well, on what basis does your evidence?
Disagree on the basis.
No.
Well, you
Wait.
want the basis, so.
Wait.
Okay.
On what basis does your evidence, where in your evidence do we find anything that helps us in terms of sense of sanctuary or solitude, risk, arresting or inspiring qualities, fulfillment from physical challenge? We don't, do we, as a matter of fact?
The drivers are adequately mapped in the context of remoteness. That gives you the solitude. The absence of modern human artifacts gives you information on opportunity for solitude. The ruggedness gives you information on potential risk. So a lot of the factors that we've mapped with SNH were intended as proxies, spatial proxies for some of these drivers, which, and I repeat, comes down then obviously to how an individual responds to those. And so it cannot, and I think this is the question you're asking, it cannot wholly substitute for the professional judgment of landscape architects and planners, but it provides an important baseline on which we can judge the changes to some of those drivers as a result of a development of the scale being proposed.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've got your answer. We'll follow that through in terms of other questions I've got to put to you, but just go with you to CD 38, paragraph 12 on electronic page 4.
CD 38?
Yep, that's the one.
538.
Sorry, 538.
538, yeah.
Paragraph 12 on electronic page 4.
Okay, got it.
We see here what Nature Scott intends, isn't it? That the physical attributes and perceptual responses come together as wildland qualities, reflecting its combination of factor that contributes to the value and appreciation of wildness. So when Carol Anderson and James Welch, following this guidance, which is, after all, Nature Scott's guidance, set out to assess the impacts of Glenshero, they're looking at wildland qualities, not simply at attributes or responses, but the combination of the two, don't they?
Correct.
Yeah, thank you. Go paragraph 18, please, on page 7 of your report. 18, page 7.
18, page 7. Got it.
And you tell us in paragraph 4 about assessing magnitudes of effects, providing GIS analyses demonstrating the extent of magnitude of effects on wildland qualities. Your mapping exercise, as I understand it, cannot tell us if we're seeing a blade tip or a whole turbine across the area that you have mapped. Is that correct?
That is incorrect.
Incorrect. Where do I see the evidence that, in your figures, please, that tell us which part of how many turbines would be seen of the Glenshero development? I put the question very precisely. I don't need a lecture on how you go about it. I just want an answer to my question, please.
The answer to the question is that the absence of modern human artifacts layer takes into account the amount of each turbine that is visible, and I explained this earlier about partial visibility, vertical area visible, and distance decay, but critically in the context of all other human features in that landscape.
We'll go to figure 37B, would you please? I don't, well, I can get out electronic page numbers actually, so perhaps I'd better.
It's all right, I can find it.
You can find it for us.
37B, yes.
Thank you.
49, I think.
49, there we are. Thank you very much, sir. So if we go to the absence of human artifacts here, obviously we can see in comparison with WIN-270-11, what you say Glenshero does to this layer of wildness. We can see by the colouring.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, my question wasn't that at all, was it? My question was, we don't know from the information you provided how many blades, how many tips of within Glenshero might be seen from any given part of the area. We don't have that information. You may think it's not useful information. I just like an answer to my question.
It is not explicitly represented on that map in the manner to which you described.
So that's what we have. Well, okay. You know, though, that, I mean, Dr. Welch and D. Carol Anderson, both of whom are very respected professionals in their field and very well qualified, have been out in the field using ZTV information, using viewpoint information, and can tell us through their skills and experience, which are very real, how much of the development in terms of blade, tips, hubs, you will see from any given point. Isn't that useful information for the reporter?
Absolutely.
You can't tell us that, can you?
I can tell you that if I just go to my system here, but what I'm doing here was something different. And I think this provides us with a useful additional information to the kind of information that is represented in the existing ZTVs, which I explained earlier.
All right. If you go back to your report, please, at electronic page 8, paragraph 110.
Yes, I'm there.
You say no detailed, in paragraph 110, fourth line, no detailed mapping beyond binary ZTVs is performed. No attempt has been made to assess impacts by mapping perceived naturalness of land cover, etc., etc. Now, I know what you say about remapping. I don't, let's go back there. But the 2014 mapping, you would acknowledge, let's get this on the record, is freely available from Nature Scott, isn't it?
Correct.
Do you not think that's being used by both Carol Anderson and Mr. Welch?
I'm sure it is.
Yeah, there we are. Page 8 of paragraph 111. You say the work of Open in the third line seems to be confirming the analysis of Rambol. Have you, sorry, it seems a rude question, but it's not intended to be. Have you read Mr. Welch's inquiry report in full?
I have, yes.
And so you've been to his Annex 4, which is I suggest, a very thorough wildland impact assessment. It may not be in the terms you want, but it's a thorough assessment, isn't it?
It is, and as I say, it is it's not in a form that I do not want. It is additional useful information.
Mm. And I'll leave that point. Go to page 9 of your inquiry report, please. It's a ZTV point again, it's a fieldwork point and slightly repetitive, but I'm going a stage further. That can we agree that Mr. Welch and indeed Carol Anderson have been able to verify information shown on ZTV maps, which are theoretical visibility, by going into the field, taking account of topographic and other shielding, and they're able to tell us very accurately, reliably, how much of the development will be seen from any given location for the benefit of the reporter. Do you agree that?
In a limited way.
What does that mean, a limited way? Does it mean yes or no, or yes but?
It means yes, but.
Yes, but what?
Yes, but, well, as I explained, the ZTVs produced in other reports for the inquiry are binary ZTVs. They're based on the theoretical visibility of turbine blade tips and photo montage visualizations, which we know are limited for various reasons. And even extensive field work, it would be out with the employment of augmented reality. Perhaps that could be used, I don't know.
You've got me there. What do you mean by augmented
Oh,
reality?
yeah, well, yes, that's a method by which you can insert new features into the landscape with a VR headset and see what they would look like from particular locations.
Well, we look forward to your paper on that one.
Uh,
Let's go to paragraph 2.8, please, of your inquiry report on page 14.
2.8. Yep, got it. 2.8. That's on 13.
Sorry, my apologies. Page 14, paragraph 2.8. It's second page.
The overlap, right?
Yeah, sorry.
The bullet points, yes.
You talk in the second full bullet point on that page about Jenks natural brakes optimization, we know as Jenks classification. You've seen, I think, Mr. Welch's reproduction of the Jenks analysis before the inquiry in JW22. Have you looked at that? There's a CD 12.3.2.
Yes, I think I've got the right one there.
JW22.
JW22.
It's electronic page 9. Sorry, I should have said that.
No, it's quite right. I've got it.
And we can see, I know, don't make your updated mapping point, I've got that point fully, but this displays a wide range of wildness classes across WLA 19, doesn't it?
Yes, it appears to.
Ranging, I think, from class 4 to class 8 in general terms, am I right?
In general terms, yes. This must come from SNH, yes. Yes, this is SNH's map.
Yeah, indeed. What I'm slightly puzzled about is if, and maybe a good reason for it, I don't know, if you've provided the layers of attributes, the 4 layers, three of the 4 layers, you've told us you haven't provided ruggedness, but why did you not complete the exercise and remap the Jenks wildness classes while you were at it and produce that to the inquiry?
Look very carefully at these. The problem here is largely due to the existence of Strawn Laird and the lack of a remapping of the Jenks classes post Strawn Laird decision. So I mentioned earlier that to the best of my knowledge, the phase 1 and phase 2 mapping was not redone before the June 2014 wildland areas map to take into account the impact of Strawn Laird. As I say, there is a map on in the geographic information analysis for, it's actually page 55 that SNH produced, which shows these Jenks classes.
Could I stop you there, because you're really not dealing with my point. I'm sure I didn't.
No, I'm coming around to dealing with your point.
Can we get there?
Yeah, sure, of course, can. It's important to get the detail. In the Jenks classes that we're looking at there are the Jenks classes which were produced pre-Strawn Laird. So having Strawn Laird been constructed and also Dell consented, then it makes it rather difficult to make anything meaningful out of the Jenks classes based on the presumption that, let's say, Glenshero was consented.
No, let me just put my point again. Look, you have provided us with the layers of perceived naturalness of land cover, absence from remoteness from mechanized access, and absence of human artifacts. You've chosen not to provide ruggedness. You could have done so, you haven't, that's fine. But if you have those 3 layers prepared, it's but a step to complete an overall map which shows Jenks classification. So you could have done that as part of your remapping exercise. Never mind what happened in 2014. Why didn't you do it?
Because, and I just correct you on the fact of, I didn't produce a single map of the ruggedness layer because there's no change there, but it is incorporated into the composite map showing overall wildland quality index. I didn't do the remapping of the Jenks classes for the reasons stated, but I believe that these classes in this case have been impacted very heavily by the Stronleg decision.
I am going to stop you there, Dr. Carver, because I've asked you a very precise question. All you told me is I didn't do it for various reasons or for reasons explained.
I thought that was the question.
My very precise question was, you've mapped the layers, which can in turn lead to Jenks classification. Remap them. You brought them up to date. You told us what the position is. You've been and ground truth the information in the field. Why not go the extra step and provide a Jenks class map of the position as it is now?
Because it gave us very little information to look at the impact of Glenshero on its own, because of the prior existence of the Stronleg and the effect that that had in splitting the phase 3 core areas of wild land in 2013 into the June 2014 wildland areas 19 and 20. The lack of a remapping of the Stronleg impact massively impacted that and confuses the decision regarding Glenshero.
Well, let's see if that's represented in your figures in due course. Would you go to paragraph 3.4, page 18 of your inquiry report?
Paragraph 3.4, we've got it.
You tell us the sequence of these 5 maps in paragraph 3.4 provide a visualization and quantification of the spatial patterns of both existing and predicted impacts and spread of wind-farm developments across the area. I want to get one point finally clear before going into figures and going into more detail, that what your maps show are simply impacts on attributes, aren't they? Let's get that quite clear.
The maps show impacts on attributes, but when combined to provide the composite map, phase 1 composite map, they show the overall impact on wildness in the area.
Well, it shows the overall impact in terms of relative wildness,
correct,
but only taking account of attributes, not perceptual responses. That's correct, isn't it?
That is correct.
Thank you. Got there. So I'm going to beat Mr. Kelly to the punch and ask for a 5-minute comfort break, because I need one, and even if he doesn't. So may I have a 5-minute comfort break?
I think that's absolutely fine by me. No objection from anyone else, I see. So is 5 minutes okay, or do you want 10?
If we took 10, I think we could make substantial progress in the next session.
Yes, I think if we return back at 11:20 then.
Okay.
Okay.
Look forward to it.
It appears that everyone has returned. So if I could ask Mr. Trinick to continue. Mr. Trinick.
Thanks, Dr. Carver. Would you now go with slightly changing a topic now to paragraph 3.6 on page 19 of your inquiry report? Are you there?
I think you're still on mute, Mr. Carver.
Yeah, sorry for that. Yes, I'm there.
Good, okay. Now we can agree that an objective of this inquiry is to look at the impacts of Glenshero on a variety of baselines, and that's indeed done that in your figures. But can we agree that no part of this inquiry should be looking at the impacts of CLOIC on any baseline?
I believe not, yes.
So that when we go to your figure, let's start with the 3.1 to 3.3 series. We've got 3.1, which does what it does, and 3.2. 3.2, which is Stronle plus del. 3.3a rather, 3 is Stronle plus del. 3.3b then adds Glenshero. But can we agree that the reporter should entirely discount 3.3c, which adds CLOIC to the picture?
Yes, I think so. I mean, I was adding that for completeness just to show the sequence.
Right, okay. Go to paragraph 3.8 of your report, please.
3.8. Got it.
Now, this is a preamble to something else, but if you go to, you say in 3.8, you talk about the remoteness of mechanized access attribute. That's, and I'll leave people to read the paragraph. But in terms of this attribute, we're looking, what you're trying to assess are the impacts on the attributes of the wildland area, aren't you?
In total, in the across the area landscape as a whole.
Well, I'm not sure what that means. This is the wildland session only. What you're trying to inform the reporter about is the impacts in the terms of your evidence, which are different from Carol Anderson and James Welch.
Yes, yeah.
You're trying to tell the reporter about the impacts of the development on the attributes of the wildland area. That's what you've mapped, isn't it?
That is correct.
Yes. If you go to paragraph 3.10 then, in your inquiry report, page 21, I think people will have read, it's a long paragraph, it's not a criticism, but people can read what you're telling us you do in the figures there. That's a preamble to going to figure 3.15 now, please.
Yep.
Now, the difficulty is with these figures I had is that they don't show the boundaries of the wildland areas, do they?
No, they don't, but they're provided later on.
Well, they are, but we're asked to assess the position by reference to all your figures. Would it be not better to go to figures 3? We'll go to 3.17 if you wouldn't mind, which I think has the same information, but with the wildland boundary added. Okay. Electronic page 70. We start at.
Correct.
And I want to take up with you initially one point. In 3.10, you tell us in the 5th line, it can be seen, I'll just read it out rather than people go back to it. It can be seen the greatest impact is as expected in the immediate vicinity of the proposed site within the Stronle Bowl. And then, but also across key summits and you name those summits down to the end of the sentence. So far as the Stronelay Bowl itself is concerned, this is outside any WLA, isn't it?
It is now.
Well, never mind the history. It's outside any WLA. And therefore, what happens to the attributes of wildness on the site in the Stronelay Bowl are irrelevant to the topic of this session, because what we're interested in is the impacts on the wildland area. Do you agree?
Mm-hmm.
We do agree. Okay. So if we go to figure 318A now, that shows a Stronelay plus Dell. And then we go to figure, we'll come back to these figures. I just want to introduce them to the reporter for the purposes of these questions. Figure 318B tells us what happens in your view when you add Glenshero to the mix. And figure 319 tells us about reductions in wildness by reference to attributes. That's correct, isn't it?
By reference to attributes and their combination into a wildland quality index.
Well, here we go again. You're telling us about attributes. You agreed explicitly with me that that is what you have mapped, attributes.
Attributes,
Qualities,
and combine
qualities.
to create a quality index. And this is what the basis of phase 1 mapping was originally.
I can take you back to CD 538 if we have to. You've mapped attributes, you have not mapped qualities. Qualities are a combination of attributes and sensory responses to attributes. Your mapping, as you've agreed, is simply of attributes. Am I correct?
They're attributes, but they combine, and I say again, they combine to produce a composite, which is mapping the wildland quality index. So it's a quality.
What do you mean by the wildland quality index? I'm not sure what that phrase means.
Well, it's the phase 1 map, which provides us with a spatial patterning of wildland quality, combined qualities produced from combining the attribute maps.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
Let's go back to CD 538, shall we? We'll have to do
Okay.
it. Great. 538. And if we go to 538, at paragraph 12, which is on electronic page 4.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah, let me know when you're there.
I'm there.
No, I was asking the reporter.
All right, sorry.
Thank you. Well, 11 talks about attributes and perceptual responses. 12 says these physical attributes and perceptual responses come together as wildland qualities. There may be a difference of terminology between us, and that's what's getting in the way. But I thought we had it clear that what you've mapped on these figures are the attributes. You've agreed that already. Am I correct? Yep.
Which figures are you referring to, sir?
All of your figures. You don't map anything but the attributes.
I disagree. We map the attributes, which are the 4 attributes which are carefully described. These are then combined into the phase 1 map, which is a map of wildland quality.
So where do you find that? Which map is that?
Those are the composite maps.
Just give me a figure number, would you please?
Oh, well, let me remind myself what the figure number is. These are, well, there's a series of figures where we combine them into quality for the sake of argument. So there's the,
we get the answer.
figure 3.13, which is relative wildness, the wildland quality.
Stop there. Figure 313 then.
Yep, 313.
Is a relative wildness pre-development, which is a combination of the layers which are represented in the earlier maps. Is that correct? Let's take it step by step, slowly.
That is correct.
Right. So what you have there is a combination of the attributes brought together as a relative wildness map. Am I right?
Yes, but it's a wildland quality index.
No.
Overall index of quality.
Dr. Carver,
Mr. Trinick.
let's try and use the terminology that Nature Scott use.
Okay.
They say 538, paragraph 12, these physical attributes and perceptual responses come together as wildland qualities. Let's stick with their terminology, not yours. You have brought together a series of attributes into figure 313 as a composite map, combining the layers of attributes, but they can only represent the attributes in the terms used by Nature Scott in CD 538. Am I correct?
Well, it's a semantic point as to whether.
Did you have an answer to the question, please, Dr. Carver? Am I correct?
No, you're incorrect.
Well, how on earth do you bring perceptual responses into these maps? I don't understand. You've already said they only map attributes.
They map attributes as their components, but when brought together into the composite phase 1 map, that is a map of relative wildness, which is the quality, landscape quality of wildness. It's a spatial representation of that. How we as individuals, as I explained before, how we as individuals respond to relative wildness as mapped, according to the individual drivers of the attributes, remoteness from mechanized access, which is the long walk in, absence of modern human artifacts, perceived naturalness and ruggedness, varies according to the individual.
Thank you. So you haven't mapped those human responses, have you? Because they are a matter of individual perception.
We're mapping, and again, I repeat, we haven't mapped that because that would be impossible to do that for everybody. But we're mapping those physical and natural attributes in the landscape which influence individual responses.
Yes, Dr. Carver. I just wonder if you're in the planning world at all here. If you go to CD 538 again, I think we've now got it clear, I hope to goodness we have, that you have not tried to map human responses. You can't, you said it's impossible.
No, absolutely not. No, we're mapping the drivers.
I agree with you completely.
Good.
I agree with you completely. But what the Nature Scott assessment exercise contemplates is that the physical attributes which you have mapped brought together with those human responses which you have not mapped.
Correct.
In order to produce wildland qualities, which therefore you cannot have mapped because you have not mapped the human responses. And what we're looking at are a combination of attributes and no more. Am I correct?
I think we're looking at two parallel processes potentially, both of which support each other.
Well, I want to stick to the Nature Scott process, if you don't mind, because that's the guidance the reporter has in front of him.
Well,
in terms of that guidance, and please would you answer my question, in terms of that guidance, paragraph 12 is the key paragraph. You have mapped physical attributes. You have agreed it would be impossible to map perceptual responses, and therefore you cannot have combined the attributes and responses to map the qualities in Nature Scott's terms. Do you agree?
I've mapped the physical attributes, and there's the words, and I quote, come together as wildland qualities. And the phase 1 map is a bringing together of the physical attributes and their effect on drivers, on perceptual responses together into the wildland quality map, which is a phase 1 map. As I said earlier on, these are complementary approaches. Nowhere in CD 5.38 does it say you shouldn't be mapping. In fact, it does use the word map. I have and others have interpreted the guidelines as to how some of these steps can be interpreted as a mapping exercise to complement and support some of the professional judgment of trained landscape architects. I hope we can get that clear.
Well, I have your answer. So you have my question, and I think we have it clear from the witness that he has not mapped human responses. So I can take it from there in closing submissions in terms of guidance. Yeah. Thank you. Let's then go to figure 318A, if you would.
This is in CD 6.1, right?
Sorry, no, my apologies. Your map, figure 318A.
Okay, yeah.
That's the one, electronic page 71 of your inquiry
yeah.
report. That shows a Strone leg plus Dell, and I'm focusing on the wildland area 19 for the purposes of my question.
Mm-hmm.
Then we've got 318B, which adds Glenshero. Then we go forward to 319, where you measure the reduction in wildness by reference to attributes. And then on to figure 320, which adds Glenshero. Now, I've got some points arising from these figures. As you say in your report, the principal reductions in wildness occur in the vicinity of the development, don't they, in the Strone Lag Bell. We can see that if we look at it, the difference between 319 and 320, can't we?
Yes, it's helpful if you have the digital copy, and then you can scroll between the two.
Yeah, well, whatever, but we can see that the principal reductions occur in the vicinity of the development. Within WLA 19, we can see higher, we can see some marked reduction between 319A and B in the area. Do wait till the end of the question. In the area of Carnlyeth, can't we, which is viewpoint 15. We know where that is, because a little bit of red appears in 319B at viewpoint 15, which wasn't there in 319A. So that's a change due to Glenshero, isn't it?
Correct.
And we know, I think you know, that from that viewpoint that Glenshero is seen in the same field of view as Strone Leg, isn't it?
Correct.
So what we're looking at is the additional impact of Glenshero on top of the existing impact of Strone Leg and Dell.
That's correct. If you look between figures 319A and then 319B, you see some areas of significant change.
Yeah, you see, what puzzles me is that when you compare 319A to B as a whole, it doesn't bear out your evidence, because apart from the change at Carnlyeth, all we have are very low levels of change marked in dark green, don't we, as between Strone Leg and Dell, and then adding Glenshero to the mix. Am I correct?
In terms of overall pattern, the majority of the impact is a low one at the lower levels, but then there are some very high levels of impact on key summits.
Well, not as between 319A and B there aren't, except at Carnlyeth, because I've done a very thorough interpolation between 319A and B, both digitally and on paper. And I'm struggling to see that apart from the summit of Carnlyeth, there's any change in the area other than very low, i.e. dark green.
That's the summit to which I'm referring.
Yeah, just Carnlyeth. So the only change, except at a very low level, is at Carnlyeth. That's right, isn't it?
Correct.
Yeah. And I'm sure you wouldn't, I haven't seen any methodology you've used. I don't know what your terms mean in terms of the word significant, but I wouldn't imagine that you would claim that a very low level of change could be described as significant.
Significant in terms of overall area. That's a very large area of change in the head of the Glenroy.
Well, we don't have a methodology for you, but what we do know is that you're claiming a very low level of change apart from Carnlyeth. So we can record that. Go back, no, which just get out your inquiry report. Don't need to go back to it. I want you to stick with the figures, but we're now turning to WLA 14. And you tell us, I'll read it out, it's easier. Paragraph 310, page 21. There are small patches of significant impact at greater distance, including WLA 14, from the summits of Gower Khan and Ben Alder, where this faces onto the proposed development site and where many of the turbines will be in full view. Well, let's go to figure 320, A and B, which are the comparisons we need to look at. You know, I really struggle to see what change there is between 320A and 320B within WLA 14. Do help me. I see none at all.
Yeah, you're right. You've actually spotted I've added the wrong. Thank you for that. I've added the wrong map. I think it was probably best to look at 319A and 319B in that respect.
Right, well, let's try.
And then you do see.
Wait till we get there. Wait till we get there. It doesn't show the whole of WA 14, of course, which is why I went to.
Well, I mean, it's only on that northern segment that actually.
No, we've got some very low levels.
Yes, there's
very low again. That's all we have, isn't it, in the northern section?
There's some changes to the very high on the summits, but it's significant in terms of the overall area.
So where do we see the change of very high? I'm looking for red, therefore.
Oh, it's an expansion of the area on the area above Loch Eric there, that big green area, and the very northern quadrant of wildland area 14.
Yeah, you need to listen to my questions. Where do I find the very high level of change, please, Dr. Carver? Just give me a precise answer.
A slight change to the existing very high and very high.
So I have no idea what you mean. If you look at 319A, we have an existing position, Strolag and Dell, where there are, I think, changes from very low up to, I don't know, is it high? Certainly not very high, because that would be noticeable. If you go to 319B, the only additional changes as a result of Glenshero are marked very low, aren't they?
As I say, I think if you see the.
Do you answer the question, please, Dr. Carver? Am I right?
No, you're wrong. There are some slight changes. It's minor, I admit, to the very high around the summit, just to the west of Dalwhinnie there. But the main impact, it's a low but significant.
Where do I find these high impacts? Because I can't see them on your colouring. You said west of Dalwhinnie. I'm looking. Where do I find those? As far as I can see, there's no change at all.
Just above the Loch Eric forest.
No,
that's a minor. As I say, they are spatially very minor, but you can see them, slight changes. They're just on the summits, but the main influence is the large area of green to the west of Dalwhinnie.
Right. Looking at paragraph 313 of your inquiry report, please, now on page 21.
313. Yep.
You say in order to complete the picture of the potential impact on wildland from Glenshero, it's necessary to look in the wider context of onshore wind farm developments and the pattern of wildland across the whole of Scotland. Are you and Mr. Kelly going to tell us that the reporter needs to look beyond the impacts of Glenshero in terms of his report to the ministers? Is that what you're telling us?
I think it's useful to put it in the context of that, because
I asked you if you felt that the reporter should be reporting to the ministers on impacts beyond the impacts of Glenshero. Yes or no, please?
No, they shouldn't.
Right, thank you. Very clear. Now, looking at this map 321, whatever it does, it had better be accurate, hadn't it? Electronic page 21, therefore, sorry, not page 21, figure 321. Are you there, sir?
I am, yes.
Are you there, sir?
I am.
Not you. I'm not calling you sir.
All right, sorry.
I'm a reporter, sir. Call you sir if you want. But
Oh, Dr. Carver will be fine.
no problems. I'm afraid this map is materially inaccurate, isn't it? If you look at Limekiln, you know where Limekiln is, don't you?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, I'm talking.
Yes, I am. Yes, I can see Limekiln.
It seems to be mapped as an application.
Yes, that's correct.
Well, it's not, is it? It's been approved. It's under construction.
Well, this is the map I downloaded from SNH. I did alter the area around Strome Leg.
And I'll just stick to my question. So it's materially inaccurate for a start because Limekiln is not an application. It's actually under construction.
Okay.
If you also look at Drumholliston, you know where that is.
Correct.
It's marked as an application. Actually, it's been refused, hasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And if you look at Doranel, you know where Doranel is?
Doranel, no, I'm not familiar with that one.
Well, it's shown as an application in green. Others will be familiar with its whereabouts. It's actually operational.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you know, it rather goes against your remapping point. If your whole exercise is designed to bring the world, SNH, and all of us up to date, it better be accurate, doesn't it? And this map is inaccurate.
With respect, sir, yes, but the data is from SNH, so that's a matter for report.
Right, 315 of your inquiry report, page 22. And we're back here to this 324. Landscape free from visual impact from wind turbines is highlighted, including the Monolea area. Well, regardless of whether or not this map's any help to the reporter, I'll be making my submissions on that. Let's go to it.
Mm-hmm.
It would seem to me that the area of the Monoleas is shown as shaded and therefore not wind farm free at all. Am I right?
There are elements of it which are.
Sorry, which figure are we on, Mr. Chinnock?
324.
324. You see, your inquiry report says landscape free from visual impact from wind turbines is highlighted, including the Monolea area. Materially inaccurate, Dr. Carver. It's partly shaded. It is a fact.
Partly shaded, but partly not shaded.
Well, there we are. Not quite what you say in your report. I mean,
semantic.
Strome Leg is high, wide, and handsome in the view, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's just another fact-finding exercise. As far as I can see, it doesn't take the reporter anywhere. Would you agree?
I think it's very informative.
Very informative.
Correct.
Very
And
well.
you'll see that the on figure 2324 that the bowl of the Glenshero wind farm, there are large areas which are free from visual impact as they are currently.
What do you mean the bowl?
Pardon?
What do you mean the bowl?
Oh, well, the valleys that form the general bowl of the Glenshero area as on 324.
You know, I don't know what you mean, but it doesn't interest me, so let's move on. 315, again in your inquiry report, the Glenshero area, you say, is one that is still largely free from visual impact. I'm astonished by that comment. I mean, we're an extension to a very large 66 turbine wind farm. What are you talking about?
Topographic shielding of the ridge between, of which I did visit in late September, shields much of the Glenshero wind farm site boundary from Strome Leg. I think we talked about this in a.
So say that again.
The ridge between the Strome Leg bowl, I think we talked about this in previous days, shields much of the Glenshero area from visual impact from the Strome Leg development.
Well, I've heard what you say. It makes no sense.
It makes perfect sense. It's mapped on figure 3.24.
Yeah. Let's go to finally to some brief points on some of your figures individually. If you go to figure 3.1 first of all.
Figure 3.1. Yep.
The map is, it says source SNH 2020, but of course this is a pre-any development map, is it?
Yes, I downloaded it from the SNH website on 2020. It's normal.
My question, is this a pre-any development map? Is it pre-Stronlag?
It's pre-Stronlag.
All right, okay. And then we go on to 3.2, which shows Stronlag.
Correct.
But I can see absolutely no difference between 3.1 and 3.2 in terms of the layer being mapped. Am I correct?
There are some minor differences. If you remember when I described the way that perceived naturalness of land cover is.
Where are these minor differences? Where do I see them?
There's one right in the centre. There's slight changes. The easy thing to do is to look at the change figures in figure 3.4a.
All right, so look. 3.4a and 3, I see. So, because we don't have a 3.1 represented there, do we? It's simply looking at 3.2 at Glenshero. So what you're saying, for some reason, there's a red dot very high in the middle of everything, but the rest of Stronlag only gives rise to low levels of change of naturalness. Is that right?
That's correct. It's a very localized impact in the way that is mapped.
I see. Okay.
That red dot is the substation in the centre of which has a very large hard standing.
So the substation has given rise to a high level of difference in perceived naturalness of land cover, but the turbines very low.
Yes, very low around.
I hate to ask you to explain the logic, but I suppose I better. Well, what is the logic of that?
It's based on the land cover, not the actual feature itself. So we're not mapping the impact of the turbine itself on perceived naturalness. It's the perceived naturalness of land cover. And therefore we're mapping here the roads, the hard standings, etc.
I see. 3.3a, sorry, I think we're going to 3.3b now. And therefore we're adding Glenshero to the mix.
Correct.
I see absolutely no change between 3.3a and 3.3b. Am I right?
No, you're incorrect, because it's difficult to see in the way that it's mapped there because it is a localized impact. The best thing again to do is to look at figure 3.4b. Which then shows the effect of the hard standings on perceived naturalness around the Glenshero turbines.
I see. So, well, all right. I see there are low levels.
Yeah, okay.
The logic is another matter, but at least I can see what you've done. Go to 3.4a, please. And no, we've done that one. It's okay. So far as the WLA is concerned, though, because we're really interested in the wildland area, not what happens on the site, of course. Absolutely no changes at all, are there?
Not in this particular instance, but what you cannot do, if you just bear with me, you cannot just map the influences of B-Ray, whatever they are, of the proposed development inside the wildland area without mapping it entirety over the whole study area.
I'm not sure what that answer means. Can I just have an answer to my question? But in terms of the level of impact on perceived naturalness of land cover, there are no changes whatsoever in WLA 19. Am I correct?
That's correct, yes.
Thank you very much. If you go to figure 3.5, and this is absence of human artifacts. Now, we've got the pre-development position, we've got the current position in 3.6, so that's Stronlag coming into the picture. 3.7a, Dell comes into the picture, and then we've got 3.7b,
correct,
where Glenshero comes into the picture. So we can see that some brown colouring appears because of Glenshero. I understand that, but I'm not really interested in that. I'm not interested in the wildland area. looking at that map, I detect, knowing where WLA 19 is, not a single difference. Am I correct?
There is a difference in the valley running westward into wildland area 19.
Well, it's impossible to perceive on the map I've got. Is there a better map to look at?
Well, again, it's best to, this is the whole reason
Okay,
to look at 3A, A and B.
right, so let's do that. I mean, I'm interested in the wildland area now, not what's happening on the site. So we can see some low levels of impact. Is that right?
There are low, some very low. There are changes to the high, very high on the summits.
On this is Carnlia again, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all right. Looking at 3.9, if you would, please.
Yes.
Just hold on, I may have missed a point. I just want to make sure I have. Okay. No, go to, I haven't. Go to 3.9.
Mm-hmm.
Pre-development, current development. That's the current position. Now we're looking for remoteness and mechanized access there.
Yep.
So, and this is the up-to-date mapping, is it?
What I did here, and there was some well, not necessarily confusion, but I asked for clarification from the engineers, from the applicants, is to what extent the track system, which feeds into the Glenshero development, was in existence at the time of the 2014 mapping. It seemed that it was, and I was unsure about that because it seemed to be tracks which were used for the construction of the reservoir, but then there was a whole bunch of tracks which seemed to be laid out ready for the construction of Glenshero prior to that being given approval. I did ask for clarification on that, but in the interest
Not really what I'm interested in. I'm much more interested in why the effects of the Melgarve substation access road are not marked, why the grid connection track from Stronleg to Melgarve substation. Why, no, let me finish the question.
Okay.
About the access tracks serving the Beauly Denny Towers.
Yeah.
None of this appears to be mapped at all in terms of the remoteness from mechanized access. Is it mapped or not?
It is mapped. That was included in the SNH mapping of 2014.
Well, I don't think so, because unfortunately Stronleg wasn't built then, nor was the Melgarve substation, nor well, the Beauly Denny Towers may have been built, I'm not sure, but not the substation and not Stronleg.
No, but the substation has been constructed. The substation doesn't affect remoteness from mechanized access. The substation, as you know, is on the track which was used for the construction of the Beauly Denny line.
No, it wasn't. There's a Melgarve substation access, which we discussed in detail yesterday in the cross-examination of Carol Anderson, which leads through to Garver Bridge and beyond to the Spey Dam. That, as far as I can see it, isn't represented in any map at all. As a matter of fact, am I correct?
That track of the road is up into up to the Garver Bridge and beyond. The military road is included.
It's included. Well, then compare figure 3.9, which is pre-development and remoteness from current access, mechanized access current at 310. Are you really saying that this substantial road leading to the substation and the access tracks for the Beauly Denny Towers and the grid connection track from Stronleg to Melgarve has as little effect as appears on 310? Where do we see any effect at all?
It was already mapped by SNH.
Stop you there, Dr. Carver. We've been there. It has not been mapped by SNH because these features did not exist in 2014. We seem to be going back every time we go forward. Now,
well, with respect, I disagree, but because I included that in the pre in map 3.9. There's public access up as far as Garver Bridge, which then generates the large area of brown running up into.
You can cut to the chase here. Are you saying that your pre-development map assumed that Melgarve substation access road existed?
No, it was assuming that the Bewley-Denny line was under construction. I really honestly just took the data that was provided by SNH on that.
So on 310, are we saying that you've reflected the Melgarve substation access road? Where does it come in?
Well, it won't have changed much of that map, but you can see there's a small area of change, which is largely caused by the road going from the Melgarve substation, which I visited, up into the ridge, which then connects over into Stronelairg Bowl. And as I understand it, that access track was constructed for the construction of the underground connector, high voltage connector.
Right, so your answer is that whatever level of change we see on 310 as compared with 39 does reflect this substation access road. That's
yes.
Your balance. Well, okay. 312.
Well, yeah.
A and B I want to go to. And here we're looking at the level of reduced remoteness, Stronelairg and Dell, as compared with Glenshero. Glenshero comes into the picture at 312B. Obviously, there's differences around the site. I'm terribly sorry, I can see no changes whatsoever. Bearing in mind this is a composite map now, level of reduced remoteness is bringing the layers together. I see no changes in WLA 19 at all.
That's
Am I
correct,
right?
yes, that is correct.
Well, extraordinary. So, after all this, you tell us in levels of reduced remoteness, no changes in the wildland area. That's your evidence.
That's correct, but with respect, I just refer you to the methodology. You cannot only concentrate on mapping the wildness attributes inside the wildland areas without mapping them outside the wildland areas in your study area as a whole, before you then create the composite maps, which show the differences in wild qualities across the area and where they do in fact impinge in the wildland areas. Now, admittedly, those impacts are mainly as a result of visual impact in the absence of modern human artifacts layer, but the way that the methodology works, you can't just map the bits that you're not interested in, or bits that you're interested in. You've got to map the whole area.
Yeah, well, we've been through the scope of your evidence already. I'm not going to go back to that subject. 313, figure 313, electronic page 62. Now, 314, let's start with. This is relative wildness. So I want to get it clear again. This is where you bring your layers together, isn't it?
That's correct.
Right, okay. So 314 shows the current position. And I hate to ask the question again, but I'm going to, but does this current position, as shown, reflect the Melgarve substation and its access track?
It does, yes.
It does. So looking, I see. So pre-development, relative wildness, okay, I see some changes, fair enough. But when we look at 315B as compared with 314, no, this is a 315A compared with 315B, that's the right comparison. We look at WLA 19 so far as we can on that map. We'll go to the boundary maps later. I detect absolutely no discernible difference as between 315A and B.
At this level, using these classifications, there are minor differences, but the whole point of the difference maps is to highlight where the differences are.
Well, yeah, we're in the practical world of planning, Dr. Carver. That's what we're about. We're looking at measuring differences.
Precisely why I provided the difference maps.
Yeah, well, with this one, okay, well, let's look at the difference maps and let's just look at them, shall we? 316, then we'll look at. So we've got 316A and B. And we can see that overall, dare I say it, that apart from the change at the top of Carnlyeth, which is very high, all the other changes in this overall picture, so far as the Glenshero addition are concerned, are very low. Is that correct?
In the Glenroy area, there's some extensive areas of very low above Loch Eric, but also over on the Munros of
As always, as has become a feature, you're not answering my question. Am I right that all the changes which are shown in WLA 19 as a result of the addition of Glenshero are at the very low level? You understand my question?
No. Not all of them, no.
Tell me where there are others apart from the top of Carnlyeth.
Oh, well, that's the one I was referring to.
Yeah, so everything else is very low, isn't it? Yeah, okay. We go to 317. I'm going to go straight to 319B and because that's, I think, where we see the position more clearly. But 319 derives from 317, doesn't it? Looking at the same thing.
That's correct.
All right, okay. Let's go to 319. A and B. Again, in terms of changes in wildland areas, I'm not going to go into what you mean by that, but looking at these two maps, again, the only change I see is at the top of Carnlyeth, apart from some very low green areas. Is that right?
Correct.
All right. Now, we've already addressed WLA 14, looking at WA 20 now, because it's another feature of the JMT evidence and wildland limit evidence. If we look at 319A, we can see there's some changes in wildness brought about by what's happened already. If we look at 319B, so we add in Glenshero, my proposition is that we see nothing discernible, no changes.
You do on the Candag Summit Ridge.
Yeah, you
inside,
do. There's a little bit of red, isn't there, on the Carnjeric Summit Ridge?
Yeah, and it's more in the orange, the high area as you go up the ridge towards the summit. That is definitely inside wildland area number 20.
Yeah, it is. You're right. I see that. So that's one area of change. But apart from that, am I right? I see no other changes between the two maps. Is that correct?
There's a few minor ones, but it's. I mean, again, it's a function of the topographic situation of Stone Leg and the Glenshero wind sites.
All right. If you go to your let me just think if I need to go here. Dr. Carver, thank you for your answers. That's the end of the cross-examination.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trinick. Given that we've been sitting probably for 40 minutes or so, would it be appropriate just to take a short break, but not necessarily a lunch break, and then return for questions and re-examination? Mr. Finlay, do you have any questions at all?
No, sir, I don't.
Okay, I may have a couple of questions. Mr. Kelly, how long do you think you would be in re-examination?
If we took 10 minutes just now, sir, I can go over my notes. I'm looking at reducing the re-examination to just 4 or 5 questions if I have 10 minutes just now.
Well, I think if everyone's happy with that, that will dispense of having to take a long lunch break and will allow us to conclude. So let's be kind and let's give 15 minutes and let's return back at 25 past 12.
Thank you.
Okay, 25 past, we'll return after a break. Thank you. It looks as if we're all back on screen. I think Mr. Finlay indicated he doesn't have any questions. I just have possibly three questions before handing back over to Mr. Kelly. In terms of drawing conclusions, and I'll go to your conclusions in a minute, Dr. Carver, but in terms of the maps that depict your conclusions, is it fair to say that Mr. Trinick took us to them in 319 and A and B? Is that a fair, I mean, that's where we were at the end in terms of the, I'm not going to go into questions on your methodology. I've heard quite a lot on that today, what you said at the start and in answers to Mr. Trinick's question. But in terms of drawing your conclusions together on the impact on Wildland Area 19, it's those maps, 19A moving to 19B that shows the change. Right. I just want to be clear that I'm looking at the key maps that draw your conclusions together in terms of the relative level of change.
That's correct.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I just wanted to just double check that with you. Now, perhaps we could go back to your conclusions. I think in paragraph 4.9. Apologies for no electronic page.
That's okay.
But it's electronic page 25.
Correct.
I just wondered on that first sentence, if you could explain, it's located in an area that's largely free from visual impact from existing wind farms. Could you perhaps explain that, or is that something you would still sort of stand by?
Yes, I think it's as it shows in figure 324 and the zoom in for the area. The site boundary is the majority of it is free from visual impact of existing wind farms. To what extent that has a bearing on wildland areas 19 and 20 and to some extent 14 is a moot point. But I stand by the analysis and that's what it shows.
So that what you're saying there is the area you described there to me, probably on the southern side of it, but not the general area around the wind farm. Are you talking in
terms of the site boundary? Yes.
In terms of the site boundary, okay,
okay,
right, that's fine.
As supplied by the applicant.
And just on the conclusion of that paragraph, your final sentence there, a significant impact. I know we're straying into landscape matters perhaps, but I just want to ask you a question on this. One of the last remaining areas of unimpacted land, reducing the wind farm free landscape. I mean, is that an accurate description given Stormlerga and other wind farms?
Yes, I've done a sequence of maps showing the progression of areas with visual impact from existing wind farms over the years. We have a very comprehensive data set of all of the turbine footings and heights across the UK, obviously including Scotland. And I did produce an animation of this for the John Muir Trust to show the progression of the areas of visual impact, which is available on the internet. And this is, we're able to map that, and the result, and the map in figure 3.24 is as far as up to date as I can get from the data. I think my last data points were in June 2020 in terms of built turbines, constructed turbines, and the analysis is there to see in figure 324 and 324A.
So you're saying in terms of the unimpacted land, is that the wildland area?
No, it's
wildland areas, or is that wild, or is that land generally?
It's land generally. Yes, it's all areas across Scotland that do not currently have a view of a wind turbine or multiple wind turbines within a 30-kilometre radius, and that includes both onshore and offshore wind turbines in that database.
So that unimpacted land is those areas of land that don't have, they can't see a wind farm at the moment. Okay, I just needed to clarify that.
Okay, no problem.
I just needed to clarify that in terms of conclusions. Now, my last point is on the next paragraph, actually, 410, and the final, the second sentence, and it does relate to one of the points that was made by Mr. Trinick. Are you making the point there in relation to the split of the earlier marked areas, for which was larger, that you described and split into the two? So is that point about Glenshero and the proposal wouldn't safeguard the attritional loss of wild land? Are you talking there about a previous wildland area that may or may not have been suggested?
I'm talking about the impact of Glenshero, and to some extent Cloche, which we know is in the pipeline, in this area between the two mapped wildland areas, and the impact principally on wildland area 19 that the Glenshero proposal would involve on some of the summits, but also on some of the summits in wildland area 20.
So in terms of the loss of wild land that you're talking about there, your final words in the sentence, that's with regard to wildland area 19 and potentially 14 and 20, but larger 19. Okay. Correct. Mr. Kelly, that's my questions. I can hand over to you for re-examination.
Thank you, Dr. Carver. Just a few points. Can you go back to the Nature Scot publication CD 538 and to this paragraph 12 that you were asked a considerable number of questions about? Looking above paragraph 12, there's a list of 4 perceptual responses.
Correct.
In that you answered Mr. Trinick by saying that perceptual responses are responses by individuals. Is it possible to map these 4 factors listed under perpetual responses as such?
It's possible to map, and this is what the physical attributes do, is they map some of the attributes which influence an individual's perceptual response. As the paragraph there says, these perceptual responses are evoked by the physical attributes. How an individual responds to those is down to the individual. I often use the example of if you spent all your life in a backcountry cabin in Alaska, you're unlikely to think of the Mauna Lea as wild and remote. However, if you've never set foot outside of Glasgow, you probably are. So it's very much dependent on your background, your knowledge of the area, and your individual feelings about and responses that evokes, which is why it has then become apparent through cross-examination of James Welsh and Carl Anderson, that there are some differences in people's perceptual responses. And I'm sure all of us in this meeting today would all have different responses to some of these physical attributes. However, you can utilize those physical attributes to get a better understanding of the likely responses, perceptual responses to things like solitude or risk, or in 2002, Wildness in Scotland's Countryside, they talk about scenic grandeur, and those are things which are influenced by the size of the landscape, its extent, the ruggedness, the absence of modern human artifacts. So these physical attributes definitely do influence people's perceptual responses.
I understand, sorry to interrupt you. I understand the concept of influence, but do you read paragraph 11 and paragraph 12 as SNH asking you to map perceptual responses?
I read it as SNH asking us to map physical attributes.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, Dr. Carver. It's
okay.
important that you answer my precise question here, because it's an important aspect from the cross-examination. Do you think that SNH here are asking you to map perceptual responses as opposed to proxies for those responses?
I would say no.
Thank you. You were asked a number of questions by Mr. Trinnick as to whether your battle was with Nature Scott, SNH previously, and with this proposal. You may not know this, but are you aware of any technical reason why Nature Scott has gone back on the original fundamental requirement for the mapping to be repeatable?
I can't think of any, no.
Okay, thank you. You were asked a number of questions about lime kiln and the previous inquiry. Just a very simple point. Is the physical geography of the setting of lime kilns rather different from the physical geography of the setting of Glenshero?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Just one final point. You were asked about why you'd included cloic. Can you confirm to the reporter that you added cloic in your final sequence of maps because I asked you to look at the possible future cumulative position?
I can.
Thank you. No further questions, so that concludes the re-examination.
Thank you for that, Mr. Kelly, and to Dr. Carver. I look to close the session, but we probably have a couple of points just to cover. I think I may have seen the errata with regard to Mr. Dowell. I think an email came in on that. Mr. Finlay, has that been sent around?
I'm not sure whether it has yet. I will check with Mr. Dowell. If it hasn't, I will make sure that he does.
So that's one matter from earlier on in the week. Looking ahead to next week, I've now had the chance to look at Mr. Martin's email, and I think we all agreed that all parties would have an opportunity to flag up any additional points for the agenda. We also agreed that the economic benefit section, including tourism, would be taken first off, and I'll reshape the agenda for that. I've also heard from Mr. Gordon, who has been tuning in, and he has no problems with those plans, and he has indicated that he is available on Wednesday morning also. So I think if we can all plan for a day to a day and a half on the policy hearing, and half a day is my estimation for the conditions hearing, around about 2 hours perhaps. So are there any final procedural matters that anyone wants to make before I finally close this session?
Just what time next Tuesday, sir? 10 o'clock?
10 o'clock was the arranged time, so I think we'll stick to that, and we will be looking to finish at 4, and probably looking to have the same level of breaks, and looking not to expose Mr. Kelly to more than 4 hours sitting down. So we'll all work towards that. Mr. Kelly.
Just to confirm for your programming, sir, that we have no intention to take part in the conditions and agreements session following on from policy. So once the policy and socioeconomics hearing finishes, that will be us. We will not take part in the conditions session.
Thank you for that, Mr. Kelly. That's helpful. The final point is just to thank you all. I know there was a number of misgivings that inquiry may not be able to be conducted, but I seem to have been able to understand the evidence, the questions, the answers reasonably well. So I thank you all for taking part in that and bearing with us in terms of what we're using. A particular thanks to the applicant, because I think having those documents on the stick sensibly organised has been really helpful for me anyway, and I think all the parties have been able to access the documents in quick time. So a particular thanks to the applicant for coordinating that with all the parties. So with that said, I hope find you all well next week, next Tuesday at 10 o'clock for the start of the hearing. And bear in mind, we will issue a revised hearing agenda for hearing session 1. And if you do want any extra points included, then do so by close of play today if possible. Thank you all.
Thank you.